Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Amber Valley series. There are 35 parishes in this beautiful slice of eastern Derbyshire. Here's one for your viewing pleasure. Welcome back to Amber Valley once again, people. I'm suffering from a bit of a sore throat this morning, so I do apologise if you can't understand what I'm saying in places. It's very dark this morning as well. It's about 7:15. I've started this one very early because I've got a lot to cover in this parish. There's loads to see. This is the parish of Denby. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Here's a fun one. I dare bet a lot of you will have somewhere in your house, or in a relative's house maybe, a teapot which was designed in this part of Derbyshire. Welcome to the parish of Denby, which lies between the villages of Codnor and Kilburn, directly south of the town of Ripley. This is a scattered community, not too dissimilar to others we'll encounter soon elsewhere in Amber Valley, but it has at least 4 main areas of settlement. First of all, there's Denby Village, which has a school, a church and a massive memorial park to its most famous son, John Flamsteed, England's first astronomer royal. Then there's Denby Common, which has a pub and Denby Cricket Club. To the southwest there's an area known as Denby Bottles, which together with Kilburn's Rawson Green area forms an almost continuous semi-urban sub-village. Lastly is Smithy Houses, which is an important area because it contains the John Flamsteed Community School. There are tiny bits of Ripley and Belper too, namely the Marehay and Openwoodgate areas, which fall within the boundaries as well. Again, it's a former mining area and it had many collieries. The largest of these was Denby Drury Low, which was named after a local landowner. Part of his land is now occupied by the enormous Denby Pottery factory, which is famous for making those teapots and lots more tableware. So put the kettle on. Anyone for a cup of tea? Let's go. We begin where we left off in Codnor, albeit the next morning. After travelling south along Codnor Denby Lane from the Marquis Pub and Kitchen, you enter Denby here at Denby Common. Codnor Breach, which is a loosely defined hamlet, merges into this. Although mostly linear, Denby Common contains a few notable landmarks. One of these is this pub, the Bull's Head, if you can make it out in the early morning twilight. The fact it's a bright white building, though, should help you. Between the pub and the main village is Denby Cricket Club. This was formed in 1865 and this is their home ground, which is known as the Copper Yard. The club is notable because they're one of the largest village clubs in the entire country, fielding as they do 5 senior sides in the Derbyshire Premier and County Leagues. Dead opposite their ground is a former Wesleyan chapel built in 1841, which stands next to a United Methodist Sunday School built in 1909. There's a bit more coming about them later. Denby had a series of collieries, the biggest being Denby Drury Low at Smithy Houses. It was named after William Drury Low, a former High Sheriff of Derbyshire and a local Denby landowner. He helped create the Derby Canal and assisted in the creation of Denby's biggest modern-day business, which we'll get to later. Drury Low Colliery was sunk between 1839 and 1842, and it lasted for 126 years before eventually closing in 1968. It had an old atmospheric engine called Old Anna, which was used to wind men down one of its two shafts. Drury Low's Derby Canal played an important role in mining here. Coal mined at Denby was transported to it via a horse-drawn wagonway until 1908. During that time, though, Denby would be connected to the railway network. In 1856, Smithy Houses station, later renamed Denby, was built by the Midland Railway. This provided the colliery with a siding. The station house still stands, and today it's a private home. Our main walk is around Denby Village. It's a linear settlement laid out mainly along one long road. This is it, Church Street. You can get a bus on this road, one we've met before, the 138, which runs between the towns of Heanor and Belper. Denby Village has a pub called Denby Lodge, a modern pub. This opened in 1971 and used to be known as the Denby Lodge Inn. Until we reach the school and the church, the rest of the village is residential. It's a quiet place, but wouldn't have been years ago. For over 2 centuries, Denby was an industrial behemoth, as well as coal, ironstone and clay were once mined here too. Most of that industry has now disappeared, and now the village is a tranquil rural charm surrounded by the Derbyshire countryside. However, there is still one big and very famous business here. Halfway up Church Street, there's a lane whose name gives us a clue. Okay, so we've reached the centre of the village, and there are 2 things here which I'd like to talk about. First one is this lane, Pottery Lane. Denby is famous for a pottery. We'll see that at the very end of this video. I don't know if that lane leads to it, but it is a dead end. You might be able to walk it, no idea. But we'll drive around it to the car anyway. The other thing is Denby's most famous son, and right next to Pottery Lane there's a little park, and I'll show you exactly who Denby's most famous son is. It's this guy, John Flamsteed, and this is his memorial park. Let's go in and learn a bit more about this guy. Right in the centre of Denby is a huge memorial park for this man, John Flamsteed, who was England's first Astronomer Royal. Born in Denby in 1646, his main achievement was the preparation of a 3,000 star catalogue, Catalogus Britannicus. In his memory, the park contains this structure. This is a motorised celestial globe with illuminated star positions set into a sandstone plinth. It's known as the Stellosphere. Denby Parish Council opted for this as a memorial rather than having a much more run-of-the-mill statue. Flamsteed's work cannot be underestimated in astronomical terms. It was of considerable value to subsequent generations of astronomers. Flamsteed made the first recorded observations of Uranus, and he laid the foundation stone for the Royal Greenwich Observatory. He was a contemporary of both the acclaimed scientist Sir Isaac Newton and of Edmund Halley, famed for his comet. Flamsteed has a crater on the moon which is named after him. The park takes up a huge amount of space. Pun very much intended. It's not all about him here though. The park does have a lot of the usual park related things, like a playground and football pitches. And once through it from end to end, you're back onto Church Street with Denby Common to the left and the church to the right. Make no mistake about it, the Flamsteed Memorial Park takes up quite a lot of space here in Denby. After walking through it, you're then at the far northeastern part of Denby Village, and in a moment I'm going to take a right turn down a footpath which is opposite these houses here. You can just see the way marker there. This will bring us round in a loop via a side street, and then we're going to head back towards the school and the church. Now we're approaching Denby's primary school. I mean, not that the road sign is a pretty big giveaway, right? This is Denby Free School, whose history goes back to 1728. This current building was erected on Church Street in 1867. It was enlarged twice in 1875 and 1885 and can cater for over 130 pupils. It had a board outside it, which I left one of my cards upon. It's not a parish notice board, but it'll do for me. Smile everyone, be someone's reason to today. Amber Valley has 18 to go. The school stands next to St Mary's Church, which is one of the oldest churches in England. Let's take a look at it. In its grounds is Denby's War Memorial. This Celtic wheel cross commemorates the Denby men lost in both World Wars. The oldest parts of the church date back to 1135, but the majority of the building that stands here today is 13th century. It comprises a tower at its western end, which has a recessed broach spire, a clerestoried nave, a chancel and a south porch. Alterations were made in 1838 and it was thoroughly restored between 1901 and 1903 by the architect John Aldred Scott. During that restoration, part of the scaffolding collapsed in 1903, injuring one of the workmen, Job Seal of Horsley. Between the church and the school there's a footpath which runs to Flamsteed Lane. Note Flamsteed, not Flamsteed. I regretted this route choice if I'm honest. It was swampy after yesterday's rain and this last uphill section was vastly overgrown. Flamsteed Lane has a few nice houses like this black and white one for example. It has a few farms and some outbuildings too. Towards its end it becomes less like a farm track and more like a normal road and rejoins Church Street close to Denby Lodge. Eventually I returned to Oaklands Close where I began this walk about an hour ago. Now what else is in Denby Parish? So that might be it for Denby Village, but we still have some other things to see. One of those is Denby Bottles, which is another little settlement just to the west of Denby Village. We're going to drive around that and then head up to John Flamsteed School, which is on the way to Denby Pottery. So we're not done with this one yet, not by a long shot. I decided it would make more sense to go to Denby Pottery first, so here it is, a huge factory on the road between Kilburn and Ripley. Founded in 1809 on land belonging to William Drury Lowe, it began life as a manufacturer of stoneware bottles. In 1815 it was taken over by Joseph Bourne, whose father ran a pottery in Belper. In 1834 that pottery merged with Denby. Bourne later took over the Codnor Park and Shipley potteries and merged them into the Denby works in a similar manner. By the 1870s, the pottery was producing an endless list of things like ink bottles, pickle jars, churns, feeding bottles and snuff jars, to name a few. They also made more decorative hunting jugs, sprigged with moulded decorations with the handle in the form of a greyhound. Perhaps its most famous product is the Denby Never Drip teapot designed in the 1920s. These days, the company is best known for its tableware. Just down the road from the pottery towards Kilburn is John Flamsteed Community School. Now this wasn't easy to film, so do bear with me here. Flamsteed School is named after the astronomer. It can trace its history back to a school in Smithy Houses, which was founded in 1894 with just 2 staff members. The old school still exists. Known as the Ricknield Rooms, it's used as the current school's Humanities and Languages block. Serving around 800 children today, John Flamsteed specialises in maths, computing and science. No surprise there. It converted to academy status in 2016 and its school newspaper is called The Astronomer. To finish with, we're heading through Denby Bottles, which is half a mile to the southwest of the school and forms a continuous urban area almost with the Rawson green area of Kilburn. Denby Bottles takes its name from the Bottle Brook, which we last mentioned in Horsley. The brook flows along both its western and southern edges. Some residences here have a segment of garden which is over the brook. Denby Bottles is mostly residential, but it does have a Methodist church on Danesby Crescent. It's the only Methodist building still active in Denby Parish, as the one in Denby Common is now a house. Methodism was important to Joseph Bourne. He actively encouraged and supported the Methodist movement and was responsible for the building of that former chapel in Denby Common in 1841. That fact is backed up by the chapel here in Denby Bottles. It was built in 1879 but was soon extended to double its original size in 1883, just 4 years later, owing to a massive growth in members. A 2-storey extension was then built to the rear of the building in the 1960s, and it's still in use today as a place of worship. Phew, have we got all of that? There's lots in Denby, isn't there? I hope you've enjoyed this one. I know I have. I'll see you next week in Amber Valley for some more. Bye, folks. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.